Give me a sec. Okay, Natalka, over to you.
Ani Bojo, welcome to First Nations Métis and Inuit Education Association of Ontario webinar series. I am the co-chair of FNMI EAO, and our organization, the purpose of our organization is to support and promote the provision of quality education on histories, worldviews, and knowledge systems that is rooted in the experiences and perspectives of First Nations Métis and Inuit peoples. So thank you for joining us today.
Nintam.
Becca. Our webinar today on Nishnaabemwin will be recorded and will be placed on our website, and it will be found under events and webinars that you can see at the top of your screen, where it will be stored with all of our other webinars. And now I would like to welcome Marianne Nakwagij at Corbiere. She is going to present Nishnaabemwin, Ojibwe online dictionaries. Her workshop will feature 2 dictionaries that are online and describe how each presents information on the various kinds of words. Marianne is a former language chair of FNMI EAO. She acquired her mother tongue, Nishnaabemwin, also known as Ojibwe, through her upbringing in Wakwamacong. I would say she was probably born with that on her lips. After graduating from York University, her desire to be among Nishnaabemjik, other speakers of her language, again full-time, helped her pursue her teaching career. She has taught her language in university since 1989. And she has developed instructional resources and teaches Ojibwe, and she's been working on her Nishnaabemwin dictionary that she's co-authored with J.B. Valentine. Marianne graduated with her doctorate in 2007. So welcome, Marianne.
Miigwech. Now, I scripted everything I'm going to say, so I'm not going off on tangents left and right and up and down and forwards and backwards, because it's easier to do that when we start talking about the language. So I'm going to have to look off to the side here. I did print out stuff. So if I'm not looking at you, that's why. Okay, so Ani, Gitchinendum, Kinawapminbook. I'm glad to see you all. If you want to hear that again, Gitchinendum, Kinawapminbook. I'm always in teacher mode when I'm teaching I'm talking about my language. So in speaking with you today, I acknowledge the Nishnabek in whose traditional territory I've been living and working for the past 35 years. Those are the Nishnabek of Tikmekshing, 7 kilometers from my little house here in Lively. So Chimigwech to Natalka and Jody for that introduction and for Jody's technical support. Jody talked me through the basic how-tos of doing a webinar, and she's here to troubleshoot if I mess up something, which probably will happen right off the bat.
At which I will interject and say, do you want to share your screen so people see your slides that you're referring to right now?
Oh, good idea. See, I already messed up. Thanks for the reminder, Jody. Okay, so do you see a slide?
Yes.
Ojibwe People's Dictionary and the Nishnaabemwin Online Dictionary and overview?
Yes, and now
Okay.
you just want to go to play from current slide. If you want to click on that.
Okay. Okay. Where do I see? Oh, there we go. Play from
Great.
start.
Okay, we can play. from
Okay,
start.
we're starting. Okay, so
I need to blow my nose.
I'll just put Natalka on mute there.
okay. Now, at least I don't think I'll be needing to clarify since I'm not that technically advanced to be using filters, but you won't be hearing me have to say, "Kai gosh against Dausi," like that cat lawyer. Okay. And I won't be asking Jody, Anish Maba filter Egypt min. Okay. Now, so if you ever need to tell somebody in our language that you're not a cat, there you go. Okay. So when I was drafting my notes for this presentation, I quickly saw that even if I just try to outline the main features of both of these dictionaries, I was going to be talking for probably more than 90 minutes, and that's the time frame we have. So I've tried to pare down my notes a fair bit, and hopefully I won't be needing to talk more than 70 minutes or 75 minutes, so that you have about at least 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes for questions altogether. And yeah, and I don't want to end up trying to rush through some of the points that I'm going to be covering, the points that are a bit hard to explain. So I'm going to get down to business pretty quickly. I see there are, I don't know, over 15 participants according to this. Yeah, so if you don't mind, I'm not going to go through introductions one by one. Now, at any time in the presentation, feel free to ask questions. You can use the chat box, and Jody will be keeping an eye out for those questions, and she'll let me know if there's a question that comes up regarding whatever I'm talking about at the moment. So preamble. I have a bit of a preamble here to talk about, mention the general dialects that the dictionaries cover and other general pointers that users of the dictionaries should bear in mind. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to say OPD for Ojibwe People's Dictionary when I'm mentioning that, and I'm going to say NOD for the Nishnaabemwin Online Dictionary. I meant to do this. Okay. Okay, and also from time to time, you might catch me saying Nishnaabemjik. That just means those who speak in the Nishnaabe way. Now, and you might also hear me say now and then Nishnaabemwin, and that just means speaking in the Nishnaabe way. Now, where am I here? So another thing that I want to mention is what I'm assuming about your knowledge base concerning the language. I assume most of you are monolingual English speakers. Maybe some of you also speak French. And I'm also assuming that many of you have learned at least a few things about Nishnaabemwin. And I'm also assuming that if any of you have taken Nishnaabemwin courses, you've been able to take them up to a low intermediate level at most. And I say that only because from what I gather in talking with various language teachers, most of the universities that offer Nishnaabemwin are rarely able to offer higher level courses. Algoma University is probably the only one in Ontario anyway that offers advanced Nishnaabemwin regularly. If you have taken a course or two, you would have learned about the gender system, animate and inanimate, and concepts like transitive and intransitive verbs and conjunct verb forms. So I won't be defining those terms. If you're not all that familiar with them, if conjunct is a strange term, maybe some of the examples I'll mention maybe might give you a sense of what that's about. Okay, Most instructors now use the double vowel system, and that's what these dictionaries use as well. So I won't be walking you through that spelling system either. And I'll be saying Ojibwe and Nishnaabemwin interchangeably to refer to the language, and I hope that's not too jarring for people. So some background information about the dictionaries first. So the OPD documents the dialects of several communities, mainly in Minnesota and Wisconsin. I'll just refer to that region as the Lake Superior region when I'm referring to words from there. And from my partial knowledge of Ojibwe dialects in North and Northwestern Ontario, I understand that those are quite similar to Minnesota dialects. The OPD has about 17,000 words, and it's more or less complete. Now, in a sense, as you probably are aware, an Ojibwe dictionary can never really be complete because of the nature of our language. We have so many ways in which we can combine the elements of our language to form really highly descriptive words. We don't often do descriptions the way that that's done in English. In English, you use words like chuckle, giggle, guffaw, and things we know as synonyms. Or, well, these ones aren't synonyms, they're describing different ways of laughing. What we do is we typically use a morpheme being just the basic unit of meaning for a given action, and add other morphemes to that to specify how that action is being done. So an example is the morpheme ape. It's not a word, it's just a morpheme. Okay, to which we can add a morpheme like boshk. And we end up with a word that means burst out laughing, boshkape. Okay. Now, and below that, you see this big long word, and that's the longest word I've seen. Richard Rhodes documented that in his 1985 dictionary. Now, it took me a bit of practice to be able to spit this out without making any breaks between any of those pieces. So I hope I don't stumble over it now. Okay. I'll say that one more time for posterity, in case anybody wants to play back this thing and try and spit that out. And you see what a person was saying jokingly when they said that one-word sentence. Okay. Now, it's a really great example of what really eloquent and Nishnaabemchik could do. These days, I'm not much in the community, so I haven't heard. I'm sure there's somebody around. There are people around who can still form that kind of really descriptive sentence. I certainly can't. Okay, it's a bit beyond my ken. So in theory, yeah, it's almost, we can create almost an unlimited number of words. Now, I don't know if the people who made the OPD, if they've come across any words that are similar in length to that. Okay. Now, for the ones who are involved in producing the OPD, if you look at their website and look under about the dictionary, there's a picture of them, and it describes, talks about the dictionary. Now, the NOD documents dialects in the part of Ontario that I'll refer to as Lake Huron region. Now, this dictionary started from my initial compilations of words that were missing from the Rhodes Dictionary that I used to have students buy. Now, those omissions in there were not through any fault of Rhodes himself. He's among several brilliant linguists who have long worked on our language. I meet him at conferences. And yeah, I think he's brilliant. Computers back when he was setting up his database for this dictionary were much less powerful, of course. We're talking in the early 1980s here. And apparently his started chucking words randomly when it got too full. So my own compilations grew over a period of several years as I was teaching from year to year into a big long list. And I took out that list to several communities after several years, after it grew so long. I took it out to the communities listed there for Nishnaabemwin there to check. Now, I also had help in doing that from two eminent Nishnaabemwin activists that some of you may know. Shirley Williams, Professor Emerita of Trent University, and who's also from Wikwemkong, and Rita Sands, a longstanding instructor from Walpole Island and a regular presenter at the mega conference that Nishnaabemwin Tech has held every March in Sault Ste. Marie. And they'll be resuming that once we're able to do so safely. The speakers from those communities added several thousand more words to the lists that I took out. The NOD website lists the names of the 60 or so people who participated in those numerous dictionary workshops I held over several years. Now, unfortunately, I never think to do these kinds of things. I never thought to take pictures of the groups anywhere. I was just so focused on getting all the words checked that I had listed. Now, the NOD is still very much in the works, and which is why I haven't been broadcasting its existence very much. Now, there are a couple of other individuals whose expertise was also instrumental in producing that, and two of them are the tech wizards. I call them tech wizards, Dal Tokornu and now retired linguist Rand Valentine, who's also my co-author, and another linguist, Marie Odile Juncker, who's at Carleton University. So we figure there are about 16,000 Nishnaabemwin words in the tables that I compiled from all those workshops. Not all the stuff in the tables is in the dictionary yet. We've managed to export about 12,000 terms from the tables into the dictionary. And now some of those words, maybe many of them, I come across them now and then when I'm double checking a word. The dictionary entries have typos, which is why I'm hesitant to broadcast its existence too much. Okay. Because of publication requirements associated with being a faculty member, we went ahead and with the partial dictionary, putting it online, even though I didn't have a chance to proofread the entries in there thoroughly. I've corrected a few that I happened to come across in checking some stuff. Now, I've been editing the other 4,000 or 5,000 words that we still need to add. And I did have a sabbatical last year, and I managed to check maybe 3,000 words during that time. Now, there are still roughly 1,500 words left to be edited in those tables I was checking during my sabbatical. And I figure at the pace I was going, which turned out to be quite a bit slower than I thought it would be, at least another couple of months if I just do that exclusively. That's how long it would take, I'm estimating. Now, concerning this particular workshop, and Jody has asked me a few times to do something on the language. And well, since I'm working on the dictionary, I figured I'll do something on the dictionary. Now, I was quite hesitant to do a workshop on the dictionary. Now, that's only because I'm scared that those of you who are learners, you might find it a bit of a downer when you see the kind of knowledge involved if you're going to use the words that you find in there appropriately. I've been developing distance courses on our language for most of my years at the university. And as I'm drafting lessons for the higher level courses, like I've become really keenly aware of the range of knowledge involved in talking like Nishnaabemwin do, even though most of us Nishnaabemwin don't come out with big long words like that one I showed you. Okay. Yeah, we're not that eloquent. Well, I'm not anyway. So although I've just taught introductory level courses most years, even at this level, I find that some students are really struggling to form relatively simple sentences. I say relatively. This kind of sentence comes up towards the end of the introductory A course I teach. A sentence like "Gawi gibede de goshisiwok." Yeah, I've put these on the PowerPoint so you can see what I'm reading, what I'm saying. So "Gawi gibede de goshisiwok." They didn't get here in time, and remarks like "A tribe called Red Giyognoabman." So there are like those involve some fairly difficult concepts for learners that that they do need to understand if they're going to make effective use of the dictionary resource. Now you've learned already, if you've taken courses, that Nishnaabemwin uses verbs a lot more than nouns, and that information on who is doing something and on tense is bundled in with the verb. Whereas English uses words like pronouns and auxiliary verbs such as am, was, did, will, etc. Nishnaabemwin doesn't work like that. We do have pronouns, but these aren't as essential to our speech as they are to English, as those examples that I show there indicate. Okay. Since there are 9 grammatical persons, 7 animate and 2 inanimate, and 4 basic tenses, yeah, you can sort of multiply that and figure, oh, there are at least 36 verb forms. Those are individual words for most ideas concerning actions and feelings. And that's if we don't include their negative forms. So you're talking at least double that when you're saying that, yeah, when you have negative sentences as well. And we still have, there are other forms that we use as well when we're asking questions like anish, which is how we start off a what or how question, and other so-called content questions, which is how we distinguish these from yes or no questions. So in saying that a dictionary has 12,000 or 17,000 words, that count doesn't include all these specific verb forms, which looks like they would add up to at least several dozen for a given verb. I've got so here's a few of those several dozen possible verb forms. Now, I've just pulled this out from the Advanced Nishnaabemwin A distance course that I'm working on right now. I pulled together, yeah, the kinds of verb patterns I'll be covering in that course. Just made a massive table. Well, it's not too massive, just 6 pages, I think, of several of the more common verbs. For these examples here, the way you'd find them listed in a dictionary, in most dictionaries, would be madrebna, how you see them written at the bottom, and kwejma, just as your the basic word to start with, and that's what we fiddle around with. And what I've shown in the blue right in the table is another form, another stem form of those words, of those verbs. So now, in considering the skills involved for learners to begin coming out with those kinds of verbs, sentences that use those verbs for starters, yeah, I know that few people would be able to find the number of hours needed that you'd need to devote to studying the language. At the same time, I have to be honest, because even if you want to use Nishnaabemwin dictionaries, mainly to try and translate slogans or flyer captions for this and that, you really need to know how to reshape verbs in appropriate ways. And to gain those kinds of skills, yeah, courses are necessary, okay? Or at least really extensive immersion where you get to hear many of these verbs enough times so that the patterns sort of become internalized in your mind, okay? And so it's a really challenging endeavor. And when I explain some of the key features of the OPD and the NOD, you'll see why. Okay. Now, a couple of other things I want to point out in this preamble. The other thing that often happens for English speakers, somebody looking for thinking of an English term and thinking, oh, how do you say that in Ojibwe? You're going to get that kind of result. Okay. No results. Okay. And that's unavoidable. It's inevitable. It happens lots of times because not all the words in one language have equivalent terms in another, which is only understandable given that the vocabulary of a language is rooted in that speech community's historic culture and experiences. Okay. And also, the other thing that happens is when many speakers from a minority community like we are become bilingual, their vocabulary does not necessarily expand to accommodate new cultural features, new cultural concepts like texting and Zoom meetings, stuff like that. Okay, so speakers a lot of the time will instead borrow the dominant society's terms, especially when doing so makes sentences shorter. So instead of saying something like, Anish Eshigin Daswin Kadek Biab Konsim Yabjib Mudoin, and I'll show you what what that means. Anish Eshigin Daswin Kadek Biab Konsim Yabjib Mudoin. Most speakers, I think, would just say, Weganeshko cell phone number to ask what's your cell phone number. Okay. Now, what I've made up there, and that's just one way I'm imagining that Nishnaabemwin might convey the idea of a cell phone when we go to put that concept in our language. And I'm sure other Nishnaabemwin have really good ideas for how we can translate cell phone in shorter ways, but that are still reflective of how we naturally talk in our language. Okay. Another caution to keep in mind when using the dictionaries concerns expressions and figures of speech. Okay. So these two come up from particular cultural contexts in which the speech community lives. And so they also differ lots between languages. So one example, since I'm assuming I'm talking to some or mainly teachers of K to 12, maybe little kids. Yeah, I've heard teachers say, walking feet to remind kids not to run. So again, somebody might think, oh, let me say that in Ojibwe. So they might go to the OPD and they might track down a couple of words in there. They might track down a thing that looks like, okay, there's a verb for walk, but you see what that means. And then they might track down the word for foot. Yeah, if you look up feet, you might not find it because we would give the singular form foot. Okay. So you might track down nzit. But that doesn't just mean foot, it means my foot. Okay. So if you try and tell students walking feet in Ojibwe and you say Babama sends it, there's what you're really saying. My foot is going for a walk, okay, which is a very different meaning than what you're after, okay. Yeah, we don't need a separate word in there that means going in that particular remark. We do have a verb for going somewhere, okay. So Nishnaabemwin, if I were a teacher of little kids that I had to tell periodically to not run, I would either say masek, walk, or don't run. Okay. Now, of course, Nishnaabemwin today I'm sure, would be able to keep on finding ways to express many culturally foreign terms in our language, just as those in past generations did. But our goal in writing the dictionaries has been to document the Nishnaabemwin words that to date have arisen organically, naturally from Nishnabek's experiences. And one example is the Shiba Teshma. Okay. I remember hearing that ever since I was a kid. So it's been, although X-rays are not part of our culture historically, we found a way to convey what happens when you're getting an X-ray. There's nifty Nishnaabemwin morphemes to convey the essence of that. Okay. So we've just included words that, like I said, already exist. Yeah, it would be too big a job to try and go through an English dictionary and try and find Nishnaabemwin ways of expressing those ideas. As you saw with cell phone, some of them might be quite long, and people might come up with 2 or 3 possible ideas, okay, for how to express something new. Yeah, so we don't have enough time to do that. Okay, it's all I can do. It's taken me, I don't know how many years to get this far with this dictionary that we've been working on. Okay, so finally, the dictionary features. So I'll discuss the entries for a few nouns that you would find in the OPD and the NOD first. And in the dictionaries, the way they look on the websites, there's a lot of empty spaces. And some of the details that you would find in there, like some of them are in small print and some are in light print. So they're kind of hard to see, but I think they're big enough in these PowerPoint slides. Now, yeah, so I thought I would start off with the word for song. And yeah, I did show the URLs for these. If you Google Ojibwe People's Dictionary, yeah, I'm pretty sure this will pop up quickly. And if you Google Nishnaabemwin Online Dictionary or Algonquian Linguistic Atlas, yeah, you'll eventually see the Nishnaabemwin one, the landing pages for those, or whatever you call those things. And now when I'm talking about these words, yeah, it's easy for me to go down a bit of a rabbit hole because there's so much that can be said about a dictionary entry. So nouns, there are not as many details to discuss concerning those, not as many details as you'll see when we start talking about verbs. Okay, so when you find this is part of what you see on your screen. So the code NI beside the first Nishnaabemwin word you see, Nigamun, that's there. That's the OPD code for noun inanimate. Okay, the little orange megaphone tells you that they have an audio for this term, and you don't hear it right when you click on that megaphone. You have to get into the entry. But before I show you the details for Nigamun, yeah, I want to also show just for you to compare the different layouts, how we set up the entry for nouns in the NOD. Yeah, when they were talking about going online with these dictionaries, I mean that the design of these things, yeah, I just said, okay, you tech guys take care of that. I'm just going to give you the words that need to go in there. So we also use the same code, NI, for noun inanimate. And you see that right away when your search reveals the noun you're looking for. So going back, okay, referring to the detailed entry in the OPD for Nigamun, yeah, you see across the top there some information in quite small print. Okay, that information, some of it is also in that box audio for basic forms. So Nigamun, SG in italics means that's the singular term. So that's the word for when you're just saying song. PL is for plural. So Nigamunan is the term for songs. And across the top, it's not very noticeable. The third bold Nishnaabemwin term, Ngamones, dim. Dim is the code for diminutive. So that's the word that would be said to say little song. Okay, diminutive indicating that something is small. So dictionaries generally include at least a plural form for the nouns. Now, the OPD, and I can't, well, you'll see how it's set up in the NOD. Yeah, they put in something called a stem. And that's just to show that, and that would be more relevant if you have a real, if you have more of an interest in the technical linguistic aspects of Ojibwe word formation. Basically, stem just means this is the piece that you can add other things to get more descriptive with that word. Now, the NOD, yeah, so over here, yeah, you see the, yeah, ES, that's Eugene Stillday, who was one of the people who worked on the project, who provided the audio. So if you clicked on listen, you would hear that word, those words said, and the sentences said. Now the NOD, unfortunately, yeah, we don't have any audio for any words, and I don't think we're going to have any time to do any audio. So going back to this first listing from the NOD, clicking on Gumwin in the boxes on the left, clicking on that is what reveals the big box on the right. That has more details, okay? Inflection, so in that big box, we just give the term again, and in green under it, we give its meaning or its meanings. And then under that, inflection. Inflection is just seems to be the preferred linguistics terms for the various verb forms. They don't talk in terms of conjugations, like you might hear when you're talking about French verbs. Okay. For no particular reason, we opted to not include diminutive forms. But the next examples we'll look at show the other inflection that we did usually try to include when it made sense to include it, and that's the locative. Now, before, okay, what page am I on here? Okay. Yeah, it didn't show on that slide I just showed, but if you looked at the dictionary entry itself, you would see under word, oh no, it's there. I'm just noticing it now. Underneath inflection, you see this thing called full vowel form. And that can be confusing for users. I remember a woman, we were just chatting about this at the conference a few years ago, and she didn't realize that the full vowel form is not the actual word in a sense. So now the reason we put in this kind of detail, it's kind of hard for me to explain, but I'll try to explain it because it is important to understand. And it has to do with the characteristic way many Nishnaabemwin in the Lake Huron region pronounce words, and the ideal we try to follow of spelling words like that, like they sound, okay? So our pronunciation, our being those of us from the Lake Huron region, differs a fair bit from that of the Lake Superior speakers. And it differs mainly with respect to enunciation. And that's sort of like the difference between some English speakers saying probably and others taking a bit more time in saying and enunciating the word more fully, probably. So the words are the same, they just sound fairly different because some people are saying them more rapidly and sort of skipping over a syllable. So the way that many Lake Huron speakers say the word for song sounds quite different from the way many Lake Superior speakers would say it. So Lake Huron would say Nishnaabemwin. Lake Superior would say Nishnaabemwin. I don't know if you pick up the difference there. Nishnaabemwin versus Nishnaabemwin, Lake Huron speech. Okay. So for the Lake Superior version, I've put in letters, the bold vowels there are the ones that are accented or stressed. Now for this particular word, the OPD does not have audio for this, so I'm not sure if I'm saying it the way they say it exactly. So the other vowels that are underlined, those are the ones that are not heard very well. In other words, the syllable is not accented. Okay, Nishnaabemwin, Nishnaabemwin. I don't know if you can pick up the distinction there. Okay, but for Lake Huron speakers, even if you don't hear a Lake Huron speaker have the A after the N or the O after the M, we know those are there because we've heard these words said in other forms where those things do pop up because accents shift to adjacent syllables when we change word forms in certain ways. Okay, so in a way, in Nishnaabemwin, the A after N is just hidden. The O after M is just hidden. Hidden meaning not heard much at all in our speech. Okay, if we say my song or your song, then those hidden vowels get revealed. They get accented, and something else gets not very accented. Okay, so Nishnaabemwin is how you'd say my song, and Nishnaabemwin. Okay, and we could spell these. We could keep all the vowels in there and spell these instead as Nishnaabemwin or Nishnaabemwin in the second set there. And we could spell Nishnaabemwin with all the vowels in there. Okay, now the reason we don't is because we have our main, I guess, the user we're imagining for this dictionary, the one we're focusing on is a learner. Okay, learners. As learners, you're not familiar with the accent patterns of Nishnaabemwin words, the words, the language you're learning. And it's natural as an English speaker for you to bring in what you're used to, the rhythm that's in English words. Okay, so yeah, as people often say, you end up putting the accent on the wrong syllables. Okay, so writing Nishnaabemwin hopefully avoids that. And in effect, the spelling Nishnaabemwin, all that's left in there in full are the syllables that are accented. Okay, if the vowel is not accented, it's not included in the spelling. Okay, now there's no perfect solution. The other thing that happens when we do it this way, as we did in the NOD, is that you often end up with a bunch of consonant clusters, which also look hard to a learner. Okay, so Nishnaabemwin theoretically is Nishnaabemwin, but not all the vowels are equally accented. Okay, so we don't say, for example, Mino we Nishnaabemwin. Okay, we say Mnoe Wingamwin. Okay, it's hard to get that M and W out, but we do it. Okay. Now where am I here? Okay. Anyway, so that's why we put in the full vowel form. Okay, just to clue people in. All the vowels you see in there are all the vowels that are theoretically in the word. Just so you know, when you see changed words, you know where the things that pop up, where they're coming from. Okay, and hopefully when you start conjugating verbs on your own, if you're working from the dictionary, online dictionary, you can see, oh yeah, okay, there's the basic term without the unstressed vowels, and there's the full vowel thing that shows the vowel that pops up between N and G when I change the word form. Okay, lots to digest, of course, that's why there are courses. Okay. Now where am I here? Okay, so I'm going to pop them back to the OPD. And I wanted to show another kind of noun, just to, again, show, I guess, the attention you need to give to the information that you see in these dictionaries so that you zero in on the right word for a given thing you want to say. Okay. Another feature of Nishnaabemwin is that unlike English, we have no generic terms for kin terms. There's no word that means simply brother. Our terms specify whose brother. And in the case of brother, you can also see it specifies whether the brother is older or younger. Okay, there's no generic term that just means brother. Okay. For that reason, because they always have to be in a possessive form. Yeah, linguists have a term for that. They call it obligatorily possessed, nothing to do with the exorcist. It just means the noun is, they code the noun NAD, meaning noun animate dependent. Okay, so that's shown beside each Ojibwe term you see there. N signals that the older brother is my older brother. G at the beginning signals it's your older brother. The O signals that it's his or her older brother. The H/ mark there in the English translation, H/ older brother, that's just the OPD's way of signaling to the user. This is used for both his or her older brother. Like I said, we don't have specific pronouns, and our gender system is animate, inanimate. There are no distinct pronouns like that mean him or his or she or her. Okay, so that's how they handle that, H/. Okay. Yeah, this is my talk is unfolding quite a bit slower than I was timing it, so I'm going to skip a few things here. Yeah, because of the possessive forms we have, again, in theory, we would have at least 12 possessive forms for a given kin term, because it can be my or your or his or her, or ours, meaning mine and his or hers, or ours, meaning your and my older brother, their older brother, and so on. And those can be in the plural as well. So yeah, no single term for brother. Okay, so just a few other examples of there. Ksayik, your older brothers. One of yours older brothers. Okay, one of you. Ksayewa, I'm using the Minnesota spelling, Lake Superior spelling. Okay, so I'm not sure if I'm saying the words exactly as they would say them. Okay. So the possessors are two or more of you, but it's one older brother we're talking about. And Ksayewak, your older brothers. Okay. Yeah, so there's lots of kin terms. And now, because of that, I always tell my students, probably to some frustration on their part, don't try to say I am a mother of 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever. Okay, because again, mother is a kin term. We don't have a way of saying mother in an unpossessive form. Okay, since you're the mother, you're going to be talking about your children. So our natural way of indicating how many kids we have is to say something like Nsiwak Nijansuk. My children are 3 in number. Okay. Some of you might have already heard a term for child or children. Child, Binojin, children, Binojiyik. The Ojibwe noun is not a kin term. Children is not a kin term. Okay. I mean, Binoji, that way of saying children is not a kin term, but saying my children, Nijansuk, that is a kin term. Okay. So Binoji is not coded as NAD, it's simply coded NA, noun animate. Okay. So we could say the kids are playing. Okay. So the term up there, Nisiwak at the top, yeah, you would come up, that would be one of several terms you'd find if you look up 3 in the dictionaries. Okay. We form verbs from that and other things. Now, if you look further down the list, in the OPD. You'll see also a couple of other things that might look a bit odd to you. Brother of a female, brother of a male. Okay, again, some of our kin terms, not all of them, are quite specific. Specific also in whose brother is it? Is it a woman's brother? So that's the point. That second translation you see, my sibling of the opposite sex. That's the point of that. We're not suggesting that English speakers normally walk around saying, oh, the name of my sibling of the opposite sex is Ken. Nobody talks like that in English, okay? But it does signal that if you want to say in Ojibwe, tell somebody, oh, my brother's name is Ken, and you happen to be a woman saying that, then you need to use Ndoema, okay? Now, men also, of course, can have sisters. So if a man says, Ken Ndoema Shinkasa, the listener would think, okay, interesting. This guy has a sister named Ken, okay? So if a man says Ndoema, that means my sister, okay? Now that kind of, again, another complexity. Yeah, I generally don't try to introduce kin terms in the introductory course. It's just too mind-boggling for people to keep track of because we're so specific, okay? Where am I here? Okay. Just some examples. Yeah. If somebody wanted to say, if somebody asked me, I periodically get asked to do translations of flyer slogans and whatnot. If somebody wanted to say, oh, translate this thing for our flyer, Walking with Our Sisters, I would need to ask them, do you want the thing to sound like a man or men are speaking? Or do you want it to sound like women are speaking? Because if you want to say, if our sisters is men speaking, then the thing would say Ndoe Manonik. Okay. If it's women speaking, we would say Nuidgikononik. So a woman's term for my sister is Nuidgikon. The stem is Wiedigikon. Okay. And another thing that people fairly early on in the Nishnaabemwin course would be told about these things called we exclusive and we inclusive. Our is just another kind of pronoun for the same person. So our is also in exclusive forms or in inclusive forms in Nishnaabemwin. Okay, so that's how we set up the noun entry for the kin term brother. And in this slide, you see beside in that solid red header box with brother written in it, you see 10. That means in that section, there are 10 Nishnaabemwin terms listed that include the idea brother, okay? Now, if you were looking for just a basic term, for the appropriate term, yeah, you'd be scrolling up and down the thing. Requires a bit of patience. I don't know if the tech wizards can fix that up relatively easily. Maybe I'll ask them. And that's how we present the details. And likewise, we say for us, it also means my sibling of the opposite sex. But curiously, it's also used, the same noun is used for my parallel cousin of the opposite sex. Okay, some of these terms, some of these uses, many of the speakers today are not so familiar with them anymore. Largely perhaps because people are readily, like we're around English so much, we start to borrow from it quite often. So a lot of times you'll just hear like, oh, don't brother run, or don't sister run, or don't sister in line, or don't brother in line, okay? But they're in the dictionary. If anybody ever wants to revive them and start using them routinely, that would be fabulous. more specific terms. Now, I have a clock at the top over there, and it tells me it's 5 o'clock, and I have 10 minutes to get through verbs. So I'm going to jump ahead. Okay. Yeah, I just came up with a couple of terms, like historically, his sister-in-law, the term for that was Winmon. Her sister-in-law was Dongshayan. Yeah, some people seem to be not very familiar with those anymore. Okay. Yeah, and just more examples of Ndoemak. Now, for that one, let me just go back. No, okay. For that, when you go on the dictionary itself, you would see the locative for that. Now, for a kin term, it might sound odd to have a locative for a kin term. You don't say things like at his brother or from, well, you can say from her sister, but it has a different meaning. Okay. We show locatives for kin terms as well, because locatives also do another very different job. Okay, they indicate similarity. Okay, so if I say Ndawemaing, Ndawema, my brother, if I say Ndawemaing, Ndawemaing is the locative form. What I'm saying is he looks like my brother. That's what I mean by indicating similarity. Okay. Now be careful if you're a learner. Don't try and use a locative to say she likes my brother. Okay, likes in that context is a verb, and you need to go and find a verb in Nishnaabemwin. In Lake Huron, or at least in Wiki, it's shigenma. Okay, and a lesson would be involved in explaining how to put that together. Okay. I am going to skip discussing body parts in depth. Well, not in depth. I had discussed this a bit in my notes here, other than to say that's another noun, that those are another set of nouns that are always in a possessive form. Okay, my hand, my arm, my leg. Okay, and there's the use of a locative form. If you need, hopefully you won't ever need to say the dog bit me on my leg, but there's how you would say it. Nkading git komik nemosh. Okay, the dog bit me on my leg. So that's an example of how we use those. Okay, I'm starting to rush now, and I was trying to avoid rushing. Okay. Oh, example, ngama. I settled on that since we had dealt with the noun song. Okay, so VAI, this is from the OPD again. This is how the OPD, that's how the thing is designed there to look. VAI means verb animate intransitive. They also show their term for the noun, sing to him or her. H/ again used to indicate this, the object could be him or her. Okay. So nagamto, nagama, the first term, nagama, is a sentence by itself. That means he or she sings. It doesn't just mean sing, it means he or she sings. Okay. Nagamto is not just a phrase. Well, in this case, it comes across as a phrase, but it's a command. If you were to tell, if I were to tell one of you, sing to her, like say, sing to Jody. Okay, I'd say nagamto. If I were telling two or more of you to sing to Jody, sing to her, I'd say nagamtoik. Okay, just an example of how the verbs change shape. Okay. And many verbs have many different forms because, like I said, we add morphemes to describe ways of doing things. So this, when they list arrive singing, sounds odd in English, but it could happen that as somebody is walking up to your house, they could be singing. Okay, so that's when we would say, now this is Minnesota, so I'm not sure if I have if I capture how they would say this. Okay. I'm not going to try and say it. We don't have enough time for my practicing. Okay. Yeah, so that's just what I was explaining. Okay, gamto. So that's used as a command, but that same piece is also used as a verb stem to ask somebody, if you ever wanted to ask if somebody's going to serenade you, are you going to sing to me? You could say, "Guin nga matona." So you're taking that form that was shown on the previous page, and you're adding stuff to it to make it a question. Are you going to sing to me? If you're asking two or more people, are you guys going to serenade me? Okay, so that's how those the terms you find in the dictionary, those are some ways that they can be used. And here's how we set that up in the NOD. I've just shown both pages right off the bat rather than going through just showing the left boxes first. Again, we show a full vowel form for the same reason, so you can see what the hidden vowels are. When somebody says nagama, the A between the N and G is hidden in what we present as the basic verb. Okay. Another term I thought of was jibakwe. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so going back, yeah, the codes that you see under inflections, you see one SIND, that's short for first person singular independent. Independent referring to the kind of clause this forms. Independent clause, also known as main clause, which means it can stand alone as a sentence. So nagam, the one is IND form, that means I am singing or I sing. The 3S CONJ form, negamat. The CONJ is that word you heard me say at the outset, conjunct. So this word would be used in a question like, who's singing? Weganish negamat. Okay. It's changed, as you can see. Okay, 3SCCNJ. I think I said 3SCONJ. Sorry, the thing says 3SCCNJ. The first C signifies changed conjunct. And the reason we call it changed is because neg at the beginning of that is a changed form of nug, the syllable in the full vowel form. Okay. Another way we change words, depending on the kind of sentence we have. You can see why why I said, yeah, you got to have courses. Okay. These days, like Wegnesh Negamat is not the only way you can ask who's singing. You can also say Wegnesh and Negamat. It's sort of like the difference between saying who is singing, saying a full-blown, all the words fully, or sort of contracting parts of it and saying who's singing. There's no such word as whose, but it sounds like there is. Okay, whose is just who is in shortened form. So yeah, we have those kinds of variations too. Okay, tibakwe is another verb I thought I would show. And this one I just decided to show again more as practical caution for people. Yeah, you really need to be mindful of the sentence that you're using, because cook can be used in a variety of, can convey a variety of information. Okay, it describes the action somebody is doing. It's also a noun for the person doing that action as a job, as a cook. And then, of course, you can either just say, I'm cooking. You're not saying what you're cooking. So you're using the VAI, jibakwe. But the instant you start saying what somebody is cooking, what you're cooking, then you can't use jibakwe anymore. Okay. yeah, this also shows some of the entries that we do have examples where we had, I guess, where we had them at hand in a sense. And Rand has this fabulous collection of all these transcriptions of stories that ethnologists and linguists were making back in the 1900s. So Alice Williams, A.W., her story had a few sentences that had Ojibwe in it in different forms. A linguist or ethnologist worked with her in the 1940s, apparently. I think she was from the Sioux area. She apparently, the way she talks apparently is how Wiki people talk. Rand tells me that's Odawa. I see. Oh, okay. As far as I'm concerned, I'm just Nishnaabemwin. Okay. Yeah, so that also had initial change. Jibakwe, G in that becomes Ja. When you say Jabakwejik, those who do cooking, okay, or those people who are cooking. And Wapshkie is our term for white people. A white person literally means somebody with a white complexion. Wapshkiejik is those who have a white complexion, aka white people. So I just pulled that out since it has those initial change things happening with the verbs as well. Okay, Manazon. Yeah, like I said, if you're talking about what you're cooking, then you need to find the transitive verbs. So Manazon is the inanimate transitive verb, VTI, verb transitive inanimate. Okay. And again, yeah, we have a lot of Nishnaabemwin verbs with the idea of cook. The little gray number in the left box beside the English word cook says, in this section of the dictionary, there are 31 Nishnaabemwin words with that idea. So depending on what you want to say, yeah, probably a good idea to scroll down and see, okay, if you don't find a phrase that sort of fits into your idea of what you want to say, again, please be patient, sorry. You just have to be patient and scroll and check carefully before you settle on a verb. Manazwa, the animate counterpart. Now for this one, we included an imperative, a third form. Okay, so you have the 1S independent form again, Niminzwa, beside 1S IND, means I am cooking it, it referring to something animate like chicken, bakakwe. The second form there, 3S, C, CNJ would be used to say something like, what are you cooking? If you're assuming they're going to be cooking something animate like chicken or turkey or bacon. Wignish menzot. Oh, sorry, Wignish menzwat. We put it in the third person form. What is he cooking? Okay. Second, 2S IMP, IMP meaning imperative, would be to tell somebody, cook it. Manazo, for example, cook chicken. Full vowel form again. And sometimes Rand also put in other word components. Again, that's more of a linguistics interest thing. Rand is a linguist, so he likes to analyze things in linguistics detail. Another one, ganona, ganosh. This one comes up quite often. Ganona, the verb stem for talk to somebody, talking to somebody, speaking to somebody, okay? The second, the part that says 2S imp, ganosh, again, it can be a command, talk to him, ganosh. It also means phone somebody up, okay? Phone them, ganosh, okay? But also used in questions like, Wiganoshna, do you want to talk to me? Okay, and there's two other transitive animate verb stems. Quiganonin, I want to talk to you. Quiganonik Linda, Linda wants to talk to you. Okay, so that's why I'm saying, yeah, dictionaries, not not a good idea to just go and find a word and find another word and plunk them together. We got to do some grammatical stuff with them too. So you're saying what it is you want to say. Okay. Monota says I just put that up there as an example of an inanimate intransitive verb. So jibakwe describes something that it's mostly people that do cooking. Okay. But we also talk about things like programs being good. Okay. This particular screen shows that Nishnaabemwin words that have the idea of good, there are a lot of them. In our dictionary, we listed 57. There might be a few more that we haven't listed yet. Okay. Good, I wanted to point that out because, again, from English speakers' perspective, good is used in so many different contexts. A common one that I'm hearing a lot all the time is, how are you? Good? Yeah, good. Okay. Nishnaabemwin verbs, you gotta tell what or who is good. Okay. And you gotta be specific, good in what way. Okay. So if somebody's sitting there looking at the TV screen and you're wondering, oh, you might, in English, you might just say good. Then they'll realize you're wondering if the show is good. Okay, in Nishnaabemwin, that's not good enough. You got to have the verb that means it's a good TV show, which is manotese. So if you're wondering if what somebody is watching is a good show on TV or a good movie at the movie theater, then you need manotese. Manotese na. Okay. So since I'm a Jeopardy fan, I might tell you manotese in Jeopardy. Okay. And if we were debating, okay, which program is better, which show is better, somebody could ask, oh, veganesh menwatesek. So menwatesek is just another example of the changed conjunct form, that thing that's coded as C, C, and J. For inanimate intransitive verbs, that's the only example inflection we generally give. And that makes sense if you think of these inanimate verbs. The Jeopardy show is never going to say, I am good. TV shows can't talk, okay? People on them can talk, but not the TV shows themselves. So we don't have other inflections illustrated for those, okay? Okay, so basically, yeah. In English, you're thinking, I want to say good. Okay, got to be careful. Be patient, hunt down the verb that seems to approximate what you want to say. Nishin means it's good, leaving me wondering what's good. Okay. I hear that a fair bit from some learners these days. Anishna, Nishin. It happens. Languages change. My fellow speakers have started doing that too a bit. In the olden days being back to my childhood days, it was the normal way was to say things, at least to say Anishnagegi, how are you? And the typical answer was Menap Madiska, I'm fine. Okay. Now, yeah. My clock up there is saying 5:19. So I'm over the 70-minute mark. Yeah, this was just the final thing I was going to point out, since I had mentioned a number verb before when I was talking about not being able to say I'm a mother of 3. We need to say I have 3 children. So this is just to give you an example. If you look up number terms and measurement terms, these are the kinds of things you would see, okay? We do have discrete number terms. I'm sure many of you, if you're teaching kids especially, you've had them say bejik, nish, nsue, niwin, nanan, and so on. We use those terms individually only when we're counting things. Like if I were counting how many people were here today, if all of you were on the screen here, I could say bejik, nish, nsue, niwin, nanan. But when we start to use those number ideas in measurement ways, like 3 feet, the desk is 3 feet wide. He was gone for 4 days. He worked there for 5 years. Then these are the kinds of things you need to do. The number terms, most of the number term is taken and it's used as a prefix to the other morpheme for the specific unit of measurement. Das Wabik, $10. Okay. Das Wishinana de Bagas. Minik Gon Gimigishin. 10 and 5 inches of snow fell. Okay, 10 and 5 inches. In other words, normally in English, 15 inches. Okay. The Bogos happens to also be used when we're talking about minutes. And speaking of which, I don't think we have 15 minutes left for questions. Okay. So, a number verb. If we're saying, like, say, whatever, somebody arrived in a car and somebody's asking, oh, how many of you are there in Chiyek? Or how many of you are needing tickets to get in? Whatever. If you want to say there are 3 of us, you would use a number verb. Don sime. Okay. So that's how numbers are used. I just wanted to alert you to that as well. And the second bullet pointed there, just the kind of thing you would see in the materials that I prepared that I use when I'm teaching the Nishnaabemwin. Okay. So I'll close off with that nice, peaceful, soothing, serene scene. And if you have any questions, yeah, we have some minutes. Yeah, Jody said we have unlimited time here, so I don't think this thing is going to shut off on us at the 90-minute mark, if I understand correctly. You digested all of that? My goodness, you are a sharp group.
I was going to say, Marianne, my head is a little bit swimming from all of that.
Yeah,
I
good
always,
thing it's
I
recorded,
always,
eh?
I always think though, it's, you know, like, oh, go look for a word, and I don't know, I see some of those mistakes that you kind of pointed out that, you know, that I know I have made.
Yeah, which is why like I was saying, it's like I've been really hesitant to do this because I mean, on the one hand, I don't want to make people feel that this is a hopeless cause. It does take a lot of commitment and patience and a lot of missteps. That's to be expected as a learner.
For sure. I think too, though, it really points out that we really need to engage the speakers in learning the language. So being able to listen to the language, hear how it changes when, you know, as the conversation changes.
Yeah. And when you're new to hearing it, it's like with the example of it's like the parallel between probably and probability. It would take a while to clue in, oh, those 2 different sounding words, oh, that's the same thing. She's just saying my song this time. Yeah.
I just had more of a comment than a question. I use the NOD, that's the red one, eh? With the nicely formatted with the red.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, NOD. When on campus at U of S on slow internet, and just to mention, like sometimes, you know, I'd put a word in there and it said not found, but you had to be patient, especially if you had slow internet, to be able to get the word, because sometimes, you know, I was a little bit impatient and then I quickly tried to spell it differently, and then I'd look away and then I'd come back and there it was. So
yeah,
just to mention that about that, because it'll say not found until it finds it, but it might be searching, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's what Rand, if I recall correctly, he said that as long as you have the first part more or less correct, like in theory, yeah, you don't have to, depending on the word, I think, you don't have to spell the whole word exactly as we spelled it. is that they designed a database that it'll find approximates or related words. I don't think the OPD has that feature, because when I would mistype something in the OPD, or I put in whatever, a prefix or whatever, yeah, it would just say no search result.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
there's so
yeah.
much to the database design. It's like a
I did notice that. That's right. When you could start to put in partials, and especially when I tried to put like the verb stem, because maybe I was looking for something. For example, if I was reading something in the sentence in Nishnaabemwin, I might try to type that in just exactly how it was, but I wouldn't get anything. And then I would say, okay, where's the verb stem? Or I give a guess in terms of the verb stem, and then I would get something. But I really like the fact. That you can go backwards. It's a backwards lexicon. Sometimes it's not so easy if you're looking something up in Nishnaabemwin to try to find the English meaning. So then I resort to the NOD, to try to find the backwards. So I really appreciate having that online.
Yeah. So that's the advantage of the online, that you can go at it from either English into Nishnaabemwin, or you hear something in Nishnaabemwin, and depending on the word, make an educated guess. So I'm pretty sure that's a prefix, or that's the conjunct thing. So the verb must start over here. Type those things in, and you good possibility you'll find it. It'll pop up.
So Marianne, if you want to stop your screen share, and that way you can actually see the folks who are asking
I was
questions.
looking at the calm water to sort of settle after this adrenaline charged talk. That's okay.
I just wanted to give you that option. You can keep your calm water up. That's totally fine. There was also some comments, and I believe a question in the chat box. Lots of comments around people thoroughly enjoying this time that you've spent today with us here. So, so thank you. There's a lot of comments in regards to that. Amy, did you want to ask your question directly? Do you want me to read it out of the chat box?
I said Amy Commander's question about the 250 most common.
Yes, you see that there?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In a way, I'm sort of gradually doing that, because as I'm doing the higher level courses, it becomes like, because of the way the verb forms change, like initially what I would try to do is sort of try and teach people how to predict the tweaks to make. But that got really like a wordy, and I'm sure in a booklet, it'd be like, oh God, gobbledygook, can't make heads or tails of this. So after a point, I thought, okay, why don't I just compile? And I mean, how the verbs change depends partly on, like, if you remember, Amy, it's like AI verbs that end with a long vowel, nothing ever happens to the long vowel. The e always stays. But with something like nime, the e at the end will disappear in certain word forms. So there is a predictable pattern, but there's a bit of phonology theory involved for learners to anticipate, oh, the e will disappear over here. Like when I was giving the example of Nishnaabemwin and Nguma. Yeah, and this is why I say, like, linguists are so brilliant. A linguist apparently figured that out in the 1970s. Apparently, he came and visited the farmer who lived 3 miles down the road from our farm, Sam Zalmick. Some examples from Sam Zalmick's transcripts are in the NOD. And it works. Like, I've tested the explanation this linguist came out with. His name was Piggott, and it does work. But it's very involved to try and convey that to learners who are not linguists. And I don't expect people to become linguists to learn this language. Okay, so I figured, okay, let me just see what kind of list I come up with. And I do have a chart, and I can get that to you, Amy, where I set that up, and there's, like, I think 4 general patterns according to the 4 main kinds of verb features I think that's for the VAIs. And that chart, that excerpt I showed you with Kwejma, I forget, near the beginning there, the excerpt from the advanced A. Yeah, that's the affirmative chart is about 6 pages long. I forget how many verbs. And I've organized those to, oh, these verbs with this kind of ending in their stem, they all behave the same way. So they're in one group. These other verbs behave in this way. So it's sort of like the French Becherel conjugation handbooks, you know, so it's gradually coming together. And I can get that to you as well.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that would be something that you could see forthcoming in the future from people who are developing resources, you know, as a different kind of material.
I'm not sure if other instructors at other institutions are compiling similar things. Yeah, but yeah, I'm certainly doing my darndest to put them together. And basically that excerpt I showed you, that list is basically finished. And again, when you talk about most commonly, it's sort of tricky because what's common in English, a term that's used quite commonly in English might happen to not be used commonly in Nishnaabemwin speech. You know, yes, with yeah. But anyway, I just went through and I said, okay, this existing Nishnaabemwin term, this could come up, maybe not every day, but it could come up fairly regularly. I'll include that, I'll include that, I'll include that. So that's how I went about it. So there is a list taking shape.
Yeah, make watch.
And Christy would like the chart too, for sure. Yeah, oh yeah, do I still have your email address, Christy? Okay. Oh yeah, I sent you an email a little while ago. Yeah. Yeah, I sent you the flyer for this event. Yeah. So yes, I have your email address. I'll get that to you too. So complicated. Yes, indeed. So I have learned.
Yeah. On the NOD, I like the way sometimes you can get some example sentences too. Like I noticed, I can't remember how I do that. And sometimes I can't, and sometimes I can.
Normally they pop up like in the list on the left-hand side, when you click on the verb and you see the bigger box popping up on the right. Yeah, that's typically where we'll park them. But we weren't able to do example sentences for many verbs. Okay, like it's sort of random. It's like what Rand happens to have in his treasure trove of stories that were transcribed. And if I had time, and we've usually tried to do them for those words where it'd be easy to because of the way, like because a given term in English can be used a variety of ways, like for the verb get. The difference between I think I'm getting sick versus, oh, I think I'll get a new computer versus, did you get my email? Those are three very different meanings, eh? So that's that kind of situation where we would try to make make sure we have an example sentence to clearly indicate this is the kind of thing you would use this Nishnaabemwin verb that means get in English. Like, did you get my email? You'd need the verb debnan. Okay, if you're saying, well, are you getting sick? You're not gonna find, you need a verb for get in that actually in Nishnaabemwin. A verb like being sick, opposite, means both being sick or getting sick. You know, so a lot of verbs of that in English, you think like, oh, your boy is getting so big. We don't need a verb for get in there. We would just say like the verb for being big, dida. Oh, eshkam sanam dida guisensem. Eshkam, like progressively bigger kind of thing, eh? Yeah, so those are the kinds of situations where we're going to try and put in example sentences. So somebody doesn't accidentally say, oh, dona din akos kanabach, and think they're saying, I think I'm getting sick. It sounds like there's something called sick akos sitting over there somewhere, and you're going to get up and go and get it, or it's in a store. Yeah. That's the trickiness of learning another language. Yeah, and I mean, you can't avoid it, eh? You naturally think in your first language. And you think, well, the idea has a word in my language. The other language must have it too. That's a natural thing.
So Marianne, there's a lot of people requesting the chart. So I'm wondering, maybe it might be easiest if you want to send it to me, and then I can send it out to everyone through the email. That might be easier than going through all the list of people here who's requesting this chart, the famous chart.
No, let me see who are the participants here.
That might be an easier way.
I sent the invitation to my boss, the president of the University of Sudbury. Now, because I'm technically writing these distance courses for the U of S, they have the copyright. So, but I'm happy to share my stuff as it's in the works for anybody interested. I've been copying stuff, charts and tables and whatnot to people. So, and John is not here, so don't tell him that. No, he's a nice guy. He's not going to make a fuss about this. He understands. Yeah, he's heard endless lectures from me saying, "Oh, you guys gotta." There's so much to be done on Nishnaabemwin teaching, and there's so many people who want to get their language back. So we can't be sitting on the stuff they need. Yeah.
I think that's a good way to look at that, Marianne. You're a Nishin, I'm going to get this all wrong, Nishin teacher, though. You're a very good teacher. And thank you for sharing your knowledge. I know I have learned, like, having done a course with you, and a very little one, I've learned so much. And working through your books, too, has helped me a lot. And so much so, I feel like I can eavesdrop a little better on those Nishnaabem conversations I get to hear once in a while.
Yep.
So
yep. And that is a signal of learning. I mean, learning is not just about putting together sentences. It's also about picking up what people are saying.
How.
Yeah. Yeah.
How.
The steps might be small, but they are steps.
And try to share that learning with everyone.
Yeah.
So I think we're all done with questions. If there's any more comments.
Just a comment from me to close off if there's no more questions. My closing comment. Now, kapag kademo adik, always snick. Okay, you guys must be getting hungry. See, there's get, but in there's no Nishnaabemwin term for get in there. That's just from the verb kade, he or she is hungry. So kapag kademo adik is you guys must be getting hungry, or you guys must be hungry. Always snick. And yeah, Stan jumped ahead and took some advanced Nishnaabemwin, and I think I ended up working in these audic patterns. I'm not putting you on the spot or giving you a spot test, Stan. This was 2 years ago, I think. But that might ring a bell. Yeah.
The imperative.
Not this one. This one is just you're surmising. I'm surmising that it's 5:40 according to my clock, which is many people's dinner hour. So okay. I'm surmising, oh, people must be getting hungry. So again, yeah, that's where I would put in, if we have terms in there that mean must in English, we do have a term, obedek. But that's the one that means like you're required to, you're obligated to. That's where I would try and make a point of putting in an example sentences to try and show it only works in these senses. Okay, it wouldn't work in this kind of remark. Because if I said, yeah, it might come across as like, you guys have to be getting hungry. That's a command. It's an order. Okay. That's how it might come across.
You might say that if you cook something really awful, you know, and people don't want to eat it.
You will have to be hungry. Yeah. I could just go on and on and on and on with these examples. So, but I do want to say Chimmy Gwetch for and Jody, thanks for reminding me. Thanks for not giving up on me, because I don't know how many times I told Jody, yeah, we'll I will. So I finally said, okay, buckle down, time to do this. Yeah.
No, me Gwetch. It's been very, very good. And I feel like I can understand the dictionary stuff more better, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding what all those little, the dictionary lingo is.
Yeah. And that's the hard part. There's also like all the little linguistics short forms involved to alert people to the part of speech a word is. And also that like an idea that's expressed as one part of speech in English, it's not expressed as the same part of speech in Nishnaabemwin a lot of the time, eh? Yeah, so that's where those little codes are really useful to know what they signify. And I think the OPD, they do have a section when you look into it, they do explain it's like NI means noun, inanimate, AV means adverb, and so on and so forth. I don't think Rand has had a chance to compile that kind of guide to the little short forms for the NOD.
Yeah.
But he did say, even though he's retired, he'll say, yeah, I'm going to keep on working on this with you until we get it finished enough. I'm not going to get it 100% finished, but finished enough.
And hopefully there are little, like your apprentices are coming along to continue that work.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. The Nishnaabemwin group are making great strides. And one of them is now doing his PhD in linguistics over in Minnesota there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What Tonkamik?
Yeah.
No how. Well,
I'm going to stay until everybody signs off. So don't hesitate if you are indeed Pukade. I shall totally understand. I won't be offended as faces disappear. I'll be the last one to leave. I shall be the very last one to leave. And I'll also send the full presentation, since I skipped over a few parts, when you get me that whatever we're doing to disseminate the stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I noticed those example sentences when they come up. You reminded me of something. They're really well referenced. I was like, whoa, they were like, it was like telling exactly almost which story it came from in a couple situations.
Yeah, Rand. Yeah, we keep track of that. Yeah, and when I'm pulling examples from what people say in the dictionary workshops that I held, yeah, I've usually tried to jot down, oh yeah, this is the person that said that. So the stuff that I put in, you will see various people's initials in there. Just the initials would be, most of them would be in that list of people who came out to the workshops. That's in the general information about the NOD. But yeah, some of them are just like random. It's like when I'm just visiting people, other Nishnaabemwin, somebody will say something and says, oh, that's a nifty example for the dictionary. That like they weren't part of a formal workshop group, but it was just, we were just chatting. So I want to acknowledge that that example came from them. So other initials will pop up there. And then a lot of them, well, some of them, not, well, fair number. Yeah, some of them I concocted myself because I felt, oh, we really need an example for this one. So, and it just didn't happen to come up in a workshop. Okay. Yeah, I just think of things randomly and I think, oh, that would be a good example of the way that word is used. So you'll see a lot of MCs here and there.
Oh, that's right. The MCs. I did notice the MCs.
Oh, you
right.
saw some?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's right. I think I figured it out. I think I did.
Yeah. And if you see VN anywhere, that was my late mother, Violet Naukwegijik. So a lot of the examples I think of, I'm just reflecting back, recalling the kinds of anecdotes she used to tell, you know, how life used to be in Wiki or whatever, or just funny things that happened either to her or people we know, stuff like that. So I think, oh, I remember my mother saying that. That's a good example. Yeah.
I remember when that we found out about that dictionary in the first year I was taking the course. And at first we thought, no, it can't be, or it was partially, and then it sort of spread like wildfire, right? Like, whoa, we could actually, it will actually help us, in the class. And I don't know if everybody ended up using it, but I know occasionally, especially when we had to read a sentence in Nishnaabemwin and try to translate it into English, that's when I found, it was really, really helpful. And I really enjoyed being able to do that, translate it that way, because it just seemed like it helped me to try to identify where the verb stem was in the whole thing, because sometimes at the beginning, it's just like, whoa, you're looking at so much, and then like, where's the verb? I can't tell. It's in there, I know it's in there, but
yeah.
And so if you could somehow find the verb, and all those preverbs and everything else, eventually.
Yeah. So that's where we've also been really, like, I've tried to be really systematic because we haven't had a chance. When Nishnaabemwin was established there over 20 years ago, or over 25 years ago, our hope was that it would be a forum for Nishnaabemwin teachers to get together regularly, exchange ideas, exchange things they're doing in class, and eventually come up with a fairly standard curriculum, like here's what we can teach in the beginning, and then after whatever 3 or 4 or whatever years, students would be learning these kinds of things, and also settling on like a more consistent among writers, consistent way of writing. Like I said, most instructors use a double vowel system, but how we use that differs almost with every writer. And also, like, the ideal when you say spell it like it sounds. Well, just like in English, some people say wanna, they have the word wanna, as in wanna go for coffee, or they say, oh yeah, I'll probably go. There's a word probably, and then there's probably. So that's how people are writing, and there's nothing wrong with that. When we're after the ideal of spelling it like it sounds, but it's hard for learners to figure out, okay, wanna, let me look that up in the dictionary. Oh, there's no such word as wanna, but I'm sure you said it. But even like the parts of speech, like the parts of a word, like prefixes and suffixes, that's where there's a radical difference too. Like a lot of times I'll notice, like, what is technically a prefix will be written as if it's a word by itself. Like you'll see key, space, and then another word, which for us speakers, that's not a big deal because we know, oh yeah, that gets stuck with that word. That's really, those 2 pieces are really one word. We know that. But a learner, especially a very new student to the language, might be wondering, oh, what does the word gi mean? Let me see what the dictionary say, gi. Oh, interesting. All it's doing is signaling past tense. And it's not a word by itself. It has to be stuck onto a verb, which is usually Stan and Amy. You've heard me harp on in class. That's a prefix. That's a suffix. That's why I have a hyphen in there. But yeah, different people follow different conventions. So that's what makes it hard. And then when we have the changed conjunct forms, you really can't neatly split out to the part that signals present tense, like I did with hyphen, enagamat. There you can say, oh yeah, hyphen, okay, must be a prefix. Oh yeah, that's the one for present tense. But when it's negamat, it's just a changed form of the verb. You need to know the idea, concept of changed forms and what kind of changed forms exist, like initial change, to figure out, yeah, the verb must be ng, blah, blah, blah. Let me see what that means if you forget what it means. Unless maybe in Rand's design, maybe if you do type in neg, mat, maybe Ngama does pop up. I haven't tested that. You know, it depends on the database design. Yeah, so it's
Yeah, I think I noticed that. Yeah, I take course.
Sorry.
Yeah. I think I noticed that too sometimes when you do partial, but you got to give it a second or two. Like it does tend to search in that. But yeah, you reminded me, wanna, like especially these days, I've heard, I don't want to go to Toronto. You know,
Toronto, where's that?
Where's that? Toronto.
Let me look on the map. Toronto. Yeah. I see here in the chat, somebody has said, please send charts to, and there's an address. So this is recorded. Is it, Jody? So we'll have that address?
Oh, yeah, it's recorded. And also, I think I was saying earlier, it would just be easier, I think, if I just send out to, like, as a whole in an email.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'll send a link to the recording, your slide deck, that, or like we can collect up the resources.
Yeah.
So you and I can do that, and then I'll send it out to everyone here.
Yeah, everybody who was here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay,
and also,